Welcome back to another segment of Behind the Scenes of the Waltons. Today I'm speaking about episode 5 from season 9, The Premonition. The Premonition was written by E.F. Wallengren and directed by Bernard McAveety. So in this episode, we find that it starts off, Cindy's been having nightmares. She's basically having premonitions that something horrible has happened to Ben. She hasn't heard from him in several weeks, and so she is fearing the worst. With the war over in Europe, there is a French woman, Simone Berenger, who comes by to see John Boy and wants him to write an article about the landmines that are scattered around France and that are causing young children and other people to step on them and die. And so people are really being impacted by this, and she wants to bring attention to it. John Boy says he's much too busy to be able to write it, and he's sorry about that. But he wants to ask her out, and she says no. He goes by her bookstore. She says that she has been carrying his book, but he's not so much interested in that as he is still trying to get her to go to dinner with him. But she is very focused on her purpose, her mission to bring attention to these landmines. So she's just not interested in dating a soldier who she knows is going to be leaving. When we see Ben in Japan, he and his team they're surveying land because they're supposed to be building a road. But we also see that they are being watched by Japanese soldiers. Jason and John Boy have lunch together at a French cafe, and Jason is talking about going back home. He's just waiting for his orders to be sent back. But John Boy talks about how he wants to be discharged in Paris because he wants to stay and write a book about the war from the perspective of Paris and France. So he's planning to stay there for a while, that with the money that he's making and has made, and while he's over there, that he feels he can stay for a while. When Elizabeth hears this news back home, she is very upset. She wants, she's going to write him a letter and tell him that he needs to come home. And here's a case where Mary Ellen, where I sort of stepped into some scenes that would have been Olivia's, would have been Michael's had she still been there, where I become the voice of reason and logic in the family. And I had a number of scenes like that in the later seasons when Michael was gone or when Ralph was gone or things like that. So as much as I missed having Michael there, I did appreciate that I had the opportunity to do some of these scenes. Jason and John Boy have gone fishing without much luck, but they're walking along these roads and they talk about how it just feels like they could be back home. And I kind of laughed because they literally were in the jungle on the back lot of Warner Brothers. So no wonder it looked so much like back at home. But then in a serious note, they pass a French couple, and then just shortly after that, they hear an explosion. And it is a landmine that has gone off, and a young boy has been killed. Having experienced this now firsthand, John Boy goes back to Simone and says he wants to write the story, that he realized the importance of it. And so she shows him all of her research, and he begins working on it, and also this attraction is growing between the two of them. So while they're spending time together, he's also sort of falling for her. And at one point they have gone to dinner, and afterwards they are walking along outside, and they go past this fountain. And in a piece of trivia, this was the fountain that later was used in the opening credits of Friends, if it looks at all familiar. And then this becomes sort of their park, and they're in the park. And there's this, the puppeteer who runs this little puppet show in the park is sleeping on the bench. And so John Boy goes in and puts on this little puppet show for Simone and sort of professes his love via this puppet. And an official kind of comes along and shoos him along. John Boy then also determines that as part of writing this article, he feels that he needs to see what this experience is in terms of diffusing a landmine. And so he has this opportunity to go out there, and he is taken by this sergeant to talk him through diffusing this this landmine, and he keeps fumbling with things, and the guy keeps going, careful, 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 and John Boy keeps flubbing it, and ultimately the major comes back over and lets him know that this is a dummy mine, and thank goodness, because otherwise they would not still be standing there talking about this because of the errors that John Boy made in trying to diffuse this, and that with people thinking that just anybody can do it, now he hopes that John Boy has that perspective, and that he needs this. The major needs trained personnel, or people that can be trained to actually be able to do it in order for it to be done safely. So he says he is counting on John Boy to write that article that gets him these men that he needs. After Cindy has another premonition, this time she sees Ben on the landing by the kitchen. She is convinced that she should go take some time away and go visit her aunt in Richmond. Ben and his crew continue to work on the survey for this road when these Japanese soldiers burst out of the jungle and take them all captive. While Cindy is still away, Ike and Corbeth come to deliver a telegram that has arrived for Cindy. Rose takes it, but she says she doesn't feel like she can read it, that it is for Cindy. So she's in a terrible state waiting for Cindy to return home. And when she does, she gives the telegram to Cindy, who hands it to John and asks him to read it. And this is when we find out that Ben has been taken prisoner. But Cindy has also received a letter from Ben. And his letter talks about him having had a vision of meeting Cindy at the dock when he gets back home and how beautiful she looks. And so she somehow feels reassured because she said she had a premonition that something had happened to Ben and it came true. So now she believes that the premonition that Ben had about coming home and being with her will also come true. So somehow that brings her comfort and she feels like it's going to be okay. John Boy has received the telegram that Ben has been taken prisoner of war in Japan. And so he feels that the family needs him and he needs to go home. And he tells Simone he wants to marry her. He wants to take her back with him. And she says, no, he's needed at home and she's needed at home where she is there. And they don't know what will happen, but she can't go right now and he needs to go. So he does leave and he does come back home. And we find out at the end that they never did see each other again. They exchanged letters for a while, but then sort of drifted apart. And like many wartime romances, it just didn't last. Jason's squad has been called to the area of the landmines, and they have been assigned to work on diffusing these landmines. And, he said, I thought we were going to be sent home. He goes, well, for right now, this is where you're assigned. So after the major steps away, one of Jason's team sort of says, I wish I could get my hands on the jerk who wrote that article. And Jason says, yeah, me too. So it's kind of cute because they don't realize that the article was written by John Boy, and he's the reason now that his team is having to stay and defuse these landmines, even though it's been some time since they had demolition training. The episode basically ends as John Boy arrives back home and Elizabeth sees him and reunites with him. So although she didn't write that nasty letter saying he had to come home, in the end, he did come home because the family needed him. I came across an interesting piece of trivia that some of you may know, but it said that Walton's creator, Earl Hamner, held a post deactivating landmines in France in World War II for the Army, which he said he held until someone somewhere else needed a fast typist. Our guest cast in this episode included, of course, Leslie Winston as Cindy, Robert Wightman back as John Boy, and Peggy Ray as Rose. And then Claire and Elizabeth Schoen, who played Ginny, the twins who played Ginny, and they were born April 11th, 1979 in L.A. Anita Jodelson played Simone Berenger. She was born January 24th, 1952 in Stockholm, Sweden. But she did a lovely French accent. She was in episodes of The Young and the Restless as Simone. A Man Called Sloan, Chips, 2 episodes. Bosom Buddies, 15 episodes of Days of Our Lives as Sonia Romanoff. Then Jordan Suffin was back as Norm. He was born April 18th, 1952. He did episodes also of Police Story, Emergency, BJ and the Bear, Too Close for Comfort, and he was in 6 Walton episodes, including the season 9 episodes, The Outrage, Part 1 and 2, The Triumph, The Premonition, The Pursuit, and The Last 10 Days, all as Norm. Then Ed Call was Sergeant Norton. Gosh, I wonder where they got their name from. Anyway, he was born December 24th, 1949, died July 3rd, 2012 in Salem, Oregon. On the Waltons, he did episodes in season 2, episode 3, The Separation, as the electric company man, and then here as the sergeant in The Premonition. On TV, he also did episodes of Night Gallery, Bewitched, Mod Squad, Gunsmoke Cannon, McCloud, Police Story, Dallas, The White Shadow, Chips, 8 is Enough, Heart to Heart, The Jeffersons, Newhart, Hill Street Blues, Empty Nest, The Golden Girls, and was in the films Diamonds Are Forever and Airplane 2, the sequel. Woody Eney played Major Sawyer. He was born June 8th, 1937 in Canberra, Australia. He died January 16th, 2017 in Richmond, Virginia. He served in the Marine Corps during the Vietnam War. In TV, he did episodes of Mork and Mindy, Starsky and Hutch, Taxi, The Rockford Files, Roots, The Next Generation, Barnaby Jones, Laverne and Shirley, Happy Days, 8 is Enough, Little House on the Prairie, Dallas, Private Benjamin, Magnum P.I., Family Ties, The Mississippi, Falcon Crest, Cagney and Lacey, Northern Exposure. And he said one of his most memorable roles was on Different Strokes in 1978, where he played the driver who picks up Arnold and Kimberly hitchhiking. He was also in the film Homeward Bound, The Incredible Journey. Then Pat Skelton was the soldier. He was born January 24th, 1956 in Idaho Falls, Idaho. He did 2 episodes of The Waltons, the season 5 episode, The Pony Cart, and then in The Premonition here. In TV, he did All My Children, 72 episodes as Wally McFadden. He did Logan's Run, Barnaby Jones, Wonder Woman, Policewoman, Black Sheep Squadron, and One Day at a Time, amongst others. Danielle Aubry was the French woman. She was born October 15th, 1931 in Canada and died November 25th, 2024 in LA. She did episodes of Combat, My Three Sons, Bonanza, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., Batman, Family Affair, Charlie's Angels, Fantasy Island, Dynasty, Beverly Hills 90210, and Seventh Heaven. Roger Etienne was the French man. He was born December 9th, 1923 in Bruges, Belgium, and died September 27, 2011 in LA. On TV, he did episodes of Cheyenne, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., Bonanza, Laredo, Harry-O, Starsky and Hutch, The Rockford Files, The Bob Newhart Show, 8 is Enough, Falcon Crest, Knots Landing, Days of Our Lives. He did 6 episodes. He was in the films Silk Stockings with Fred Astaire and Sid Charisse, Marathon Man with Dustin Hoffman and Laurence Olivier, and The Other Side of Midnight. Thank you for joining me for this segment of Behind the Scenes of the Waltons about the episode The Premonition. I will be back with more Behind the Scenes of the Waltons and more Ask Judy. Thanks for watching.